Welcome back to another Retro Game Club podcast episode. This is episode number 8. With me, as always, is Hugh.
Yeah, how's it going? We're going to be doing some sweet DOS talk today.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this episode. And, I'm ready to hit the ground running on this one, unless you have some anything vintagey, anything video game programming you've been up to.
No, I was, I keep debating if this should ever be a segment on the show. I think it shouldn't be. But there's like this crazy estate sale that unfortunately is like not close enough to me that I feel like making a trip. And they've got like a ton of boxed Nintendo games and boxed Nintendo systems. And I wanted to put a link in the notes, but I was like, oh, it starts on like a Thursday and I'm going to be at work and it's not really close to my office. So I can't just like duck out at lunchtime and hit it real quick. So like I could maybe go out there on Saturday and hope that all the NES stuff isn't gone. But I was shocked at the amount of boxed NES games at this thing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I would have to try to get to that if I saw one of those around here.
Yeah, I think it's out near Schaumburg, so it would be a real pain to get to.
Well, you could have said pretty much any Chicago suburb and then said that'd be a pain to get to.
Yeah. Well, Schaumburg has notoriously bad traffic, too, so it has the like giant shopping mall and stuff. Like the one listener from Schaumburg is really appreciating this bit. Yeah.
Well, I've been, my Nintendo Switch has been getting some love. I've been playing Baba Is You, which is a very retro-like a game that is a puzzle game. If you don't know it, definitely check it out. And playing the new Yoshi game, which, I don't know. It's great. Don't get me wrong. It's great, but I've played this game 100 times now. You know what I mean? It's not different enough from every other Yoshi and Mario game where...
So this is like a yarn-based game? Is that right?
Yeah, Yoshi's Crafting World, I think it's called. Yeah. And then my son loves Yoshi because I got him a little stuffed Yoshi from a Comic-Con once, and we were flipping through, I don't know, I think Hulu or something, and he saw a picture of Yoshi in that 90s Super Mario World cartoon that was with Captain N. I don't know if you remember that.
I never watched it, but I know it.
Well, he made me watch it. At first I was excited, and wow, is that bad.
Yeah, a lot of those cartoons don't hold up quite as well as you remember them.
I don't even think I remember this one well. But, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, now I played Yoshi's Woolly World, which I guess is sort of like the Yoshi... I always thought of it as like Yoshi meets Kirby's Epic Yarn, but I thought Kirby's Epic Yarn was way better.
Both those are on my list, but Yoshi's Woolly World moved down on my list because I figure it's pretty samey to what I'm playing right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how close they are.
Again, nothing wrong with it. Amazing game. I've just played it before. But should we dive in here?
Yeah, there is a Atari Arcade ROM controversy. And I mispronounced the word controversy, I believe. I'm going to mispronounce the name of the game. There is a extremely rare Atari game called AKA R.
AKKAARRH.
Yeah, I'm going to go with AKA R.
Yeah.
And someone who owns one of the few cabinets of this claims he hired a service guy to come out and do some work for him on some cabinets, and that the service guy dumped the ROMs for his rare AKA R and released them on the internet. So this is an undumped game. There's so few copies of it that it's not been dumped. Like, I assume Primal Rage 2 probably hasn't been dumped. I've never looked for it. And I think like Beavis and Butthead, the Brawler game, has probably not been dumped either.
Yeah, Marble Madness 2, never dumped.
Yeah, maybe like Argus hasn't been dumped. I'm not sure. So it's a really like small number of arcade games that haven't been dumped. And the owner of this cabinet is claiming that this repair person went rogue and dumped the ROMs. Now, it's possible they wanted to dump the ROMs anyways and came up with a convoluted backstory, because to me, it's like I hire someone to come in and work on arcade cabinets. I feel like I would notice them doing this.
Yeah. Unlikely story. But this was developed by Dave Ralston and Mike Holly from So they've done Gravatar, Star Wars, Firefox, Area, not the browser, the game, Area 51, Crystal Castles, Paperboy, one of my favorite games, 720, and Vapor TRX, which I've never played. But a lot of great games in that list. And if you look at this video, it's a cool looking game. It's kind of like Missile Command if you were looking from the top view. I guess that's how I would describe it.
Yeah.
Instead of looking from the side, you're looking from top down.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I can sort of see, like, I can see why this game maybe didn't get mass produced. It looks a little bit not fun. It's hard to weight, like, you have to weight against other games of the era. So maybe, maybe compared to other games of the era, but it looks sort of, like you said, like Missile Command, but not as much fun.
A little bit like Asteroids, kind of, with Moon Patrol. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I think it looks cool. The graphics are I mean, I don't know what year this was programmed, but for Atari 800 era, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks, I don't think it looks bad. I just doesn't think, I don't think it looks like a commercial success.
No. I agree.
Like, this would probably be a pretty decent 2600 game. I mean, the graphics would look worse on the 2600, but the basic mechanics kind of look like something that would work all right there.
Yeah, so I was surprised to see, speaking of the 2600, that this was coded for the 5200 and the Atari 8-bit computer series, and that was ditched and it was immediately ported to arcade. Like, on purpose. It wasn't other people that ported it. It was just released or supposed to be released in arcade, and then that was canceled as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet. I mean, there's a lot of games from this era that were, started and then scrapped after play testing. Some of the ones I just mentioned, like Argus, or obviously the Beavis and Butthead Brawler, which is at Midwest Gaming Classic every year. It's a Galloping Ghost arcade, and it really is like the worst beat 'em up game you will ever play.
Yeah, I've never played it. And I've been to Galloping Ghost, but I probably walked right by it since there are a lot of cabinets there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they might have the only known working copy. And like Primal Rage 2, they have one of 2 known working copies.
Yes, which I played, and I actually liked that game.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. I liked it way better than the first Primal Rage.
Same, yep. What do we got next? Game Boy Studio lets anyone create Game Boy games.
Yeah, I kind of looked at this, and I wasn't sure how it worked yet. Because they're like, well, you upload PNG files, and then you have a game. I'm like, well, okay, there's got to be a little more to it than that. Did you look at the tutorial or how you actually use this?
No. This is the only story this week that I didn't really dive into. But so what are you coding in here? Here, let me look at these docs.
Yeah, they claim it's like an IDE studio. That it's not like you're not getting into coding so much, which probably means it has like the NES Maker Kickstarter. Now, NES Maker Kickstarter had sort of templates to create lots of different styles of games. They had like a side-scrolling template and an RPG template and so on. But here it looks like, you're basically creating, I don't know how many different things you can do, but it looks like essentially you're creating things that are kind of Zelda-inspired games. So overworld games like Govelius or of course Zelda or Newtopia, something like that you're creating with this.
So this is RGB creator for the Game Boy.
Yeah, but it looks like it's more action RPG creator, really. Maybe. And it looks really, I mean, it looks really amazing. It's on GitHub.
Really good documentation.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a great project. I probably would enjoy trying it out. Maybe I don't know if some point in the future we try creating a game on this thing.
Yeah, I really like that idea. I love that it uses mod files, and if you don't know what a mod file is, you are not a child of the 90s who is a geek or really into, I guess, electronic music.
Yeah, because they probably have a converter. Like, The Genesis development I've done, there is a XM converter. So XM's like a successor to mod, although not as popular. Like I can find lots of mod files. There's not a lot of XM files. But there's a utility that converts XM files to a thing you can play on the Genesis. And that's what I'm guessing here is they have a mod to chiptune converter.
And you could also build for web, so this will actually compile to HTML5. Pretty cool. Wow.
Yeah, and in the GitHub page, it looks like it's all MIT licensed. You know, I guess if you want to fork it, but you probably won't.
So this means, you know, any of our listeners with no coding experience could write a Game Boy game.
Yeah, you can do like sort of a Pokemon style game, I guess.
Now, if you would have bought the Humble Bundle sprites from a few episodes ago, it would come in handy for this project.
Yeah. You'd have to figure out how to do like the whole palette conversion, but that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got a couple. We aren't going to do these in order, but a couple things about good retro gaming deals. So, the Oregon Trail Handheld is down to $16, and if you haven't played that before, it's great. I bought one at full price. I bought it at Target. I know I talk about my love of Target on this show way too much, but I bought it at Target a while ago, and I just paid regular price for it because I was at the time. It felt like the kind of thing that people would start scalping.
Yes, I bought it same day for some reason, or, you know, launch day.
Yeah.
And thinking there'd be a line of people there, and it was just sad little old me.
Yeah. Well, they apparently have
mountain
made
of these.
Yeah, so they've apparently made enough of them where they can now be on sale. And this is a really great game. It looks to be like, I think it's, even though it's a Mac shape, so it's a little handheld that looks like an old school Mac. It's actually, I'm pretty sure, playing the DOS version of Oregon Trail, which would make sense because you have DOS emulators. So they're probably running some kind of DOS box variant on here. And it's a good.
But they updated the interface to use those arrows and stuff like that. Really, really cool.
Yeah. So you don't need a full
great
keyboard.
job.
Yeah, you don't need a full keyboard. Yeah, just the buttons that are included on it. And my youngest kid is the one who's played this the most. She got hooked on Oregon Trail at school or something, and she's been playing this a lot. Way more than I have.
Yeah, I have one of these. I opened it up, played it once, and haven't played it again. Doesn't mean I'm not going to. I will. In fact, it will probably be a game club game someday.
Yeah. But anyhow, it's down to $16 now. And this is like, a good year or so after it was released. So my guess is that the first run did really well, and they did another run, and now maybe they made too many of them the second time around.
It's kind of a stocking stuffer at this point.
Yeah.
Should we just go into our other deal of the day?
Yeah, if you want to skip around. So running theme on this show is the PlayStation Classic price. And right now, Best Buy is giving you one for free if you buy a PlayStation 4 Pro. So if you spend, what's a PlayStation Pro 4 cost? It's like $400 now?
About $400, yeah.
Okay. So for $400, you get this free thing thrown in. There's almost no markup on video game hardware at stores. So Best Buy's definitely taking a bath on this. But I mean, I think we're 6 weeks away from these are just in the dumpster behind Best Buy. Yeah.
And again, this will probably be the last time we talk about this thing because it's been on like every show.
Yeah.
But I just like that it's so powerful, it's so cool, you could do so much with it. And it's if you don't want to spend the time with a Raspberry Pi, if you don't have a ton of money, this will get you into retro gaming. You can emulate any console on this pretty much,
Yeah. Well, and even just so, like, I bought it after the first price cut. I don't feel ripped off even slightly. I've actually played it a lot more than I've mentioned on the show.
Yeah.
Partially, I played other, like, PlayStation games off USB, and then even the games included on it, there were a few I didn't own and hadn't played before. And it's so small. Like, to me, this is a suitcase system. Like, if I have to travel for business for a week and I don't want to go out with coworkers in the evening or whatever, which is pretty much every evening, I can hook this up in the hotel room because it's HDMI and, just play games by myself and drink a bottle of screw top wine from Trader Joe's, which is a great night.
But yeah, and if for some reason you've been holding out until now for a PS4 Pro, more incentive to buy it.
Yeah, I'm holding off. I have a regular PS4, and I will probably upgrade. Boy, I don't know. It'll probably be the 5 is the next one I get, and even then it won't be at launch price.
Well, the 5 is supposed to be backwards compatible all the way to PS1, so that'll be a cool one to buy.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be a neat
Pro,
one.
I don't know.
For me, it's just like when there's a game on it that I want. Like with the PlayStation 4, it was really like I had a big backlog of Falcom games I wanted to play, and a lot of them were on PlayStation 4. So I finally just gave in to play like East and other stuff. What else have I played? Anything that isn't? Yeah, I played Final Fantasy 15 on it. I guess for some reason I really wanted to play that too. And PlayStation 5, it'll be the same deal. Like, maybe they'll do, like, a real open world Final Fantasy 16 or, East 10 or something will be on PlayStation 5, and that's when I will finally buy one.
Yeah, speaking of East, I just read that Adol will have blue hair in the next one.
Yeah, I saw that article, like, he's in disguise. Like, he was...
Oh, that's why?
Yeah, it said something about, like, it's the beginning... Sorry to bore people with East talk here. But, like, if you played through E7, this is not a spoiler. Like, in the first, 5 minutes of E7, they always have to have, in all the East games, they have to have a reason for why Adol doesn't have, like, all the equipment and powers from the previous games. Or at least equipment. Because he ends the equipment with, like, the sword that can kill God itself at the end of some of these games. And, like, E7 starts with, like, he and his traveling companion are... in a new town, they get into some trouble. They break up the local guards or something are harassing a young woman. They break it up and they get thrown in prison. And that's how they lose all their equipment. There's Shipwreck is at least 2 of the games.
Amnesia, I think, is at least 1 or 2.
Amnesia's 1, yeah. So the article is like East 9 starts with him getting thrown in prison for something. And that's why he's disguised himself, because he's now a wanted fugitive, I believe.
It's kind of how 4 starts too, but this one's supposed to spend a lot of time in the prison.
Yeah, it's like a prison city, it sounds like, which is kind of a cool idea.
Yeah, Arkham.
Yeah, which I haven't played, but I've heard good things about. I keep hearing that's like the greatest game of the last decade, and I still haven't played it.
It hasn't aged well for me. I recently tried to play it again, but that's just me. I think I was just sick of those kind of games. I'll go back to it. But moving on.
Yeah, new Amiga game. SKILLGRID. So this is this is a new Amiga game you can actually buy like in a box. It's on CD. I didn't see if there is a disc version or not, or is that CD the soundtrack? It says Amiga 1200, 5000 in CD. So there must be some way to get it on disc as well. But it's a shooter with sort of, I would call it like typical Amiga looking graphics. I know it's going to sound weird, but there's like a certain color palette I always associate with Amiga games, and this definitely has that look to it. And yeah, I mean, Amiga is a system I would still be into if I had room. I mean, the thing that got me out of Amiga was the space commitment to being into Amiga. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, it looks like you're flying like an F-14 Tomcat, and it's like a shmup, but not bullet hell. It looks cool, like you're flying over circuitry, kinda. Yeah, it's like I would call it Tron Mesotron setting, but that's not right. Yeah, kind of a circuity looking thing. This is pretty cool. Do these people do anything else we've heard of? I'm trying to skim through this right now. The box art looks familiar, so I don't know if it's a developer that we've talked about before, or if just, there's only one place that makes Amiga boxes nowadays. I don't know. I mean, I guess I guess anything can be an Amiga box, right? It's a disc. But this thing is called SKILLGRID. All one, is it one word, or I don't know, but and it's $8. Hey, why not pick this up if you're an Amiga fan? Yeah. If you have a way to play it already. Yeah, I assume you can play it on an emulator too. I've never been big into Amiga emulation. I always kind of liked having the the real computer.
Actually, I have a external floppy USB floppy drive. That'd be kind of fun to put this in.
Won't work.
And then try to... Oh, because the floppy is different?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Different disk controller, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
All I want is a USB 5 1/4-inch drive, which no one has made yet.
I think you found your Indiegogo. You're finally a reason to use it.
Yeah, about once a year I Google floppy, 5 1/4-inch USB drive, and every year I'm disappointed. So let's see here. Panzer Dragoon. So a long article here called How Panzer Dragoon Defined the Sega Saturn Era. And I guess like outside of maybe Knights, like if you ask people to name a Sega Saturn game, Panzer Dragoon I assume is the first one. If we were playing like Family Feud, but for retro game consoles, I don't know who would host that. Okay. And you said, okay, we surveyed 100 people, name a Sega Saturn game.
Yeah. It'd be a Virtua game or this.
It'd be Panzer Dragoon and Knights. I gotta feel like
top two.
It just has to be, I think. And I was just listening to a podcast about Panzer Dragoon. It was when I'm backlogged on. There's a podcast called, I have to bring my phone up so I get the title right, The Saturn Junkyard.
Oh, I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, it's a pretty laid back, kind of informal podcast. And I know they do maybe one episode a month. And there are a couple that are backlogged on, that I've been backlogged on. And one of the ones I just got through recently, I think it was their one about Saturn remakes, touched on Panzer Dragoon for a while. And of course, it's a great game. It's a game that's an obvious remake candidate because these are all so expensive now. But sort of stylistically, it does define the Saturn era really, really well. Like the Saturn library, I should say. It's almost like the game that best... It's like the most Saturn game you can make. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is not cheap to buy now.
Yeah.
It's when... So I didn't really... during the Saturn era, it's when I was going out a lot. It kind of got by me. Mm-hmm. And... this is one of those games that I don't have much nostalgia for, but I really want to try it out. I've played it here or there back in the day, but Saturn's not easy to emulate now, even though I have the RIA or FOB, whatever, the SD card in Saturn.
Yeah.
So I literally have no excuse, so it'll happen soon. Were you a big fan back in the day?
No, I mean, I worked like the Saturn launch and that kind of stuff. Saturn is one of my favorite systems for arcade ports, minus a couple. There's a couple arcade ports that are really, really bad, like Mortal Kombat 2. But overall, like, it's a great system for mid-90s arcade games. Just lots and lots of great conversions on there.
If you collect arcade games, or, actually arcade boards... I forget what it's called now. Someone's going to be screaming at the podcast, but the arcade version of Saturn. So, like Naomi was the arcade version of Dreamcast. It's actually like PC cards, PC MCIA cards. Really interesting and kind of fun to collect. A lot of cool stuff on there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, over time, I would say like arcade and computer boards and hardware, and you see with consoles now, and it's all converging. I mean... The PlayStation 4 is a Windows PC, essentially. I mean, it's not running Windows, but it's the same hardware you would get in a Windows PC. Similar hardware. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but you see the two getting closer and closer.
What do we got next?
Arcade Classics Anniversary Collection. So this is a Konami collection, is that right?
Yeah. So this is not very new news. It's just something we didn't really talk about. This got released a week or a few weeks ago. And it's getting pretty mixed reviews simply because of the...
game selection.
Yeah, but one cool thing about this is that if you have the right grip for your Switch, you could play it in vertical mode. And that opens up a few pretty cool things in these games.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is a not very inspiring collection.
No.
I saw...
No, like Life Force is okay.
Yeah. Has a Haunted Castle, the worst game in the Castlevania series. Typhoon, which is like... not really, I wouldn't call it 1943, but I don't know. Twin Bee, Nemesis, Scramble rounds that collection out.
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, two more. Vulcan Venture and Thundercross. And yeah, that's the problem. This is not really... there are some people, I'm sure, who are fans of a few games on here. But this is not a mainstream collection. I mean, this is like a collection for really kind of hardcore, except for Haunted Castle. It's a collection for hardcore shooter fans.
So it's only $20, but still, that seems a bit overpriced for this.
Yeah.
Now, they are releasing a pretty good Castlevania collection soon. So I think the only reason why this is cool is Konami owns Hudson Soft, and so maybe we'll get a Hudson collection someday while I'm still alive.
Yeah, I kind of doubt it. Until someone buys them. Like, someone competent has to buy Konami and Hudson out.
Oh, yeah. I totally agree. But at least they're doing something. They're releasing soon, and I'm sure it'll be in future news, a Castlevania collection. So
yeah,
it looks like that'll be good. But
yeah, especially if it has some games that are really expensive, like the Genesis Castlevania game, for whatever reason, is some dumb amount of money.
It is on there. I do know it is on there. Yeah. So I really have nothing else to say about that one.
Let's see. We got an article about a 386 Atari 2600 development system, which is just a video demoing someone setting up a computer with DOS running a old Atari compiler, it looks like, but on 386, which obviously was not invented when the 2600 was around. So it's Atari SDK for DOS, and you have to know 6502 assembler, I guess.
And it comes with a big thing you plug into your 2600 to play the game. I don't think it actually burns the ROMs, but it compiles it into the .A26 file, which is what you emulate.
Yeah.
So, kind of a cool video to watch. The guy's not fumbling around much at all, which is kind of cool. He actually seems to know what he's doing. Which with, something this unique, you have to know DOS, you have to have an old, 386 or 46 laying around, and you have to know 6502 assembly. So, pretty niche product.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it wasn't clear to me if he's selling it or it's just a demo.
I think it's just a demo. It looked like he was just showing off something he found. Don't read the comments in this. They're kind of enraging. Some people talking about how they wish it would compile from JavaScript and stuff like that. Come on, learn a new language.
Yeah. I have a policy of never reading comments, ever.
It'll only make you mad. It's like turning on the news.
Well, yeah, you have to think, who has time to comment on articles? Right? Or who thinks their opinion is important enough that they need to comment?
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
That's all you need to know about most online articles. Unless it's like a moderated community where you have to have some minimum amount of karma, in proof that you're not, just a crank before you comment.
Like the Retro Game Club Facebook page.
Yeah. Do we have an anti-crank test on there?
I put a little thing on there, asking please keep it retro game related, no politics or anything like that. There's enough of that in the world.
Yeah. You can find other Facebook pages to talk about politics, I understand.
Yes.
I've heard that that's a thing that's on Facebook.
Jumping into the next article, we had a similar article to this last week, so I thought this was a duplicate. Circuit level Game Boy upping emulation ante by simulating every cycle.
Mm-hmm. This is an FPGA article, right? We did talk to some FPGA stuff episode or two ago.
Well, it was the Verilog one I was thinking about.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, this actually emulates at the circuit level Game Boy. So you should be able to get the most accurate emulation possible. And it runs Native Glide, which is 3DFX's kind of like OpenGL for 3DFX. Sorry, I forgot English for a second.
Mm-hmm. It's all right.
Really
I didn't know
cool.
it very well to begin with.
It talks about how they were actually X-raying the top of the Game Boy to see, because circuit boards aren't just top and bottom. Some of the circuitry goes through the middle. Sometimes you could have many layers. And apparently they were actually X-raying the board to look inside, if I'm reading this right. Which is actually kind of funny, because that's how Tengen tried to rip off Nintendo.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is one of those articles that are way over my head.
So our project this episode, one that I've played with quite a bit, and that is FreeDOS, which, as I look at it now, turns 25 on June 29th of this year. 25. Because as part of my prep, I went back and looked at the ebook about the history of FreeDOS.
Oh, yeah.
And the ebook, it's a free ebook. It's a PDF called 23 Years of FreeDOS, which is a weird number. That's just when they wrote it, but I saw that they said FreeDOS turned 23 on June 29th, 2017. So it's very close to being an active project for 25 years. So FreeDOS is a modern version of DOS meant to have full compatibility with MS-DOS. But it's not cloning DOS. It's not like a ripoff. It's a recreation of it's a public domain recreation of DOS. So it's something that is compatible with original DOS. And their logic really was, 25 years ago, they wanted a way to continue to be able to run DOS games. And Microsoft was not going to be supporting DOS as an operating system anymore for various reasons. Various obvious reasons, of course. I mean, it makes sense for Microsoft to move on from DOS from a business standpoint. So this is meant for hobbyists who want to continue to run DOS games, do DOS development, and run new hardware even on DOS systems. So this is like, if you wanted to run, in terms of playing DOS games, there's a couple ways you can do it. So there's Windows compatibility modes, that kind of stuff. I think the original SimCity for DOS still runs in Windows 10, for example. But you can also run DOSBox, which is really dedicated just for gaming. I'm sure you can do other stuff with DOSBox. My experience has been it's pretty much only used for gaming, whereas FreeDOS is like you're actually installing DOS on the computer. You can also install it in a virtual machine. Every time I've used it has been on a virtual machine. And you're getting a full DOS environment, and FreeDOS is meant not just for gaming, but also for development. I follow like their RSS feed for updates, and like just this week, they sent out new updated versions of some of their assembler programs. Right, and some of that stuff doesn't run particularly well in FreeDOS or DOSBox. Sorry. So I like DOSBox. I actually think it's more convenient. Like overall, it's more convenient than FreeDOS if you just want to fire up a game really fast. But FreeDOS is really good if you want to have like a sort of fully functional DOS computer and even do stuff like basic internet browsing and have something that's still being updated and improved, actively to this day.
So I just looked up release dates, and DOS 6.22 was released just about 25 years ago. And DOS 6.22 was the last one before Windows 95. That's why I searched for that one. Which means right when Windows 95 was launched, these guys were like, well, nope, we need to make our own DOS. That's great.
Yeah.
And they're still doing it. Now, the reason why I always jump to DOSBox, other than it's really convenient, and I do love DOSBox, is that when you and I'm hoping one of our listeners will be able to explain this better than I can in an email. I noticed that when I was using FreeDOS, that one processor or core or thread, whatever, was at 100% the entire time. And I guess that's just how DOS worked, where it was just blasting stuff through your processor. Not that your processor was being used, it was just, I don't know, somehow, I don't know how, yeah.
Well, it could be, yeah, it could be showed as, I don't know, you can't really reserve. I don't know if that's maybe a glitch in how it's
It
recording
could be,
CPU
but
usage.
somehow, I guess like 5 or 6 years ago, DOSBox fixed that, where it's way more friendly on your CPU and therefore on your laptop battery. So that was one reason why I just kind of stuck with DOSBox, but I did load up FreeDOS a lot, and you load Windows 3.11 on it and play some great Windows games. I'll play all your DOS games. You could run a BBS on it if you wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do just about anything. I'm looking at some of the recent updates on it, and it's like, all right, new version of Emacs was in the past week. I mentioned like new assemblers, they have those out too. Read ahead added to UHDD, so it's got support for like newer devices. It has like its own version of memory managers and those things. And also, I think like the installer on it is really convenient. Like it's got a CD-based installer, so you can boot that in a virtual machine or on your real machine. You probably have to get a boot disk if it's on an actual DOS machine and all that stuff. But then it's got like a menu of like, here, check off all the features that you want to install with it. And what are there, 50 things to choose from?
Yeah. I mean, you could really use this as a standalone operating system, not have to hunt down utilities and stuff like that,
Yeah.
But
yes,
you could... Sorry, go on.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, if you had, like, if you wanted to create, like, an authentic 286, 386, 486 DOS gaming PC, I actually think this is a better option right now than DOS 6.22.
I mean, DOS 6.22 is not year 2K, Y2K compatible, so I'm sure this is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're going to run a business application on it, I don't know. For all we know, this is, again, what's powering the nuclear missiles at this point.
Yeah. I mean, this would probably be a better option. If you like, you can buy... I'm in their web store right now. There's a FreeDOS necktie, lots of T-shirts and mugs. 2 neckties, actually. I think that's funny. I mean, why not, right?
Yeah. Why not wear a FreeDOS necktie to the office?
We are not sponsored by FreeDOS in any way, by the way.
No, I'm just a fan of it. That's all.
There's a cooking apron. Oh, wow. There's a little dog shirt you could put on your dog that says FreeDOS.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is just fascinating me how much merch they have. Wow. Okay. I'm not sure I have much more to say about FreeDOS.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we talked about it because it's such a great project. I think it'll probably be around until the maintainers of it just drop over, is my guess, and hopefully someone else takes it up after that. And it's kind of cool to know there'll always be a way to restore an old DOS computer or run DOS again in a virtual machine because, like I said, when I was way back looking at like some Genesis compilers, like some dev kits from the past have leaked, and I could get them to run in FreeDOS, but they crashed in DOSBox.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, because why would DOSBox like test out whether you can compile Genesis applications in it?
Yeah,
I mean, like, it's just kind of out of what they're interested in doing.
So FreeDOS comes with an NES. It's called My NES emulator, an SNES emulator, Game Boy emulator, and a Commodore 8-bit emulator, C64 through 128, really. I didn't know that. That's cool. So you can play all your retro games on it. So yeah, and if you've ever used this, please tell us about it. Email at retrogameclub.net. And we do have some Game Club games that we played this week.
Yeah. Why don't you go first?
Okay. So I picked, in honor of a movie I still haven't seen yet, I picked Captain America and the Avengers. And so this game is, if you've played any of the Ninja Troll games, the arcade ones, it's kind of reminiscent of that, or it's supposed to be. I played a lot of this game this week. I played the arcade version, the SNES port, Genesis, and the NES version. So the first three are very, very similar. You're running around, you get to pick between Captain America, Iron Man, and a few other people. It's really meant to be played multiplayer, but I did not. And the NES one stood out to me because it's kind of a mix of Rygar and Contra in not a good way. Mm-hmm. I remember in a past a Retro League episode, you talked about how Rygar made you feel weird. And you're the only other person. I've thought that ever since the first time I played it when I was a kid. And you're the only person that's actually said it out loud other than me that I know of. And I kind of felt the same way about this game on NES.
Yeah, there is something very unsettling about Rygar on the NES. And it's kind of hard for me to articulate what it is. I mean, it's a combination, I think, of like the music, the monsters, like the creatures you're fighting. Mm-hmm. And then, like, just those giant dudes that give you advice that's really cryptic because it's a bad translation.
Yeah. And it just feels a lot like it. And so I thought the arcade version was great. Mm-hmm. The Genesis version, pretty good. Almost as good. It's a bit more choppy than the arcade version, but other than that, it's pretty accurate. But the SNES version was noticeably better than the Genesis version. And that was a question I had for my listeners, is this is one of the few games where usually with SNES and Genesis, I can't tell them apart. Mm-hmm. And if you could, it's every time I could think of, the Genesis version was a little bit better. This is the first one where for me, the SNES version was way better. So that's my question for our listeners is, if you could think of other games, let me know. Email at retrogameclub.net. But, you have anything to say about this one?
So I played the Super Nintendo version. Mm-hmm. And wasn't a big fan. I sort of generally like beat-em-up games. This one I had a hard time getting into. I mean, first of all, as far as I can tell, like, my wife and I are the only two people on Earth who are not talking about Avengers or Game of Thrones this week. Yeah. We just are like, okay, so there's this Avengers movie, and, like, I don't know. I sort of vaguely, first of all, I'm not sure who all the Avengers are. I know there's Iron Man and Thor and Captain America, and in the last movie, the bad guy, like, killed all the people on Earth or something.
That's not wrong.
And they have to, much like Final Fantasy, they have to go get the 6 crystals. Is that about right?
That's... Nah, I mean... That part's a bit off. Not far off, but a bit off.
That's as much as I know about it.
But so it's funny you bring that up too, because they're so huge now, mm-hmm. and I'm sure this game was made with this particular cast because no one cared. Yeah, you couldn't back then get the, I guess it'd be Spider-Man, and I'm trying to think who else would be huge back then.
Yeah, well, Spider-Man had standalone games, like, so I played this as a character I will call Arrow Guy.
Okay.
And did okay for a little while. The part that I didn't like about it was kind of the same thing I don't like about Comic Zone, where you're sort of fighting a little bit, and then there's like this comic book cut scene. and then you're back to fighting, and then it's like, oh, here's some dialogue and comic book stuff and fighting for a second. Like, I would prefer, like, I fight for a big level and then there's a cutscene. Not like you fight a little bit, cutscene, a little bit cut. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it kind of sucks you right back out of it.
Yeah. So I died after playing as Arrow Guy for a while, and then I switched to
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye, thank you.
Hawkeye.
And then I switched to Silver Guy and Cape.
I think that's supposed to be Vision.
Vision, okay. So I noticed they did control differently, but it's the same kind of thing. They each have like a long distance attack, a short distance attack, and jump. And I thought it was all right. I mean, it was just hard to get into because, again, you're playing for like a little bit and then it stops you, and then you play for a couple more minutes and it stops you. So I would much rather play Streets of Rage.
I agree. One thing I did want to note on the SNES version is that, so like you said, you have your long attack, your short attack, and a jump. Your long attack on every other system was a combination of 2 buttons, jump and attack.
No, this is
in the SNES version, you had a separate button for that, which is weird because Genesis, you have those 3 buttons, and they didn't do that I could tell. Again, I was emulating that one, so I could have been doing it wrong or something, but yeah. Not much. I don't have. That's about it for me on that one.
All right, I'm gonna go with my pick here, which is Blaster, which is an arcade game, and it's one I'm pretty sure I first saw on Starcade. That's why I was thinking about it here. And then it was at Midwest Gaming Classic, so it's a cabinet that I think the Galloping Ghost people bring, or brought this year. And it's this weird. It's a Jeff Minter game, and it's like this weird first-person space shooter with really like giant enemies, like towering huge enemies that you're fighting, and you're flying through this crazy environment. I remember seeing it way back in like 1983 or whenever, and thinking, man, that is the most incredible looking arcade game I've ever seen. And I saw it at Midwest Gaming Classic and played it a little bit and said, oh, you know what, I got to go back and play the home version a little bit more and talk about it. And what I learned, sort of 2 things right away. Like, one, the version that's on Midway Arcade Treasures, at least the GameCube version, is not emulated very well. So after playing the arcade game, a week or 2 ago, and then playing this port, I realized, yeah, this emulation's bad because like the layering doesn't work. Like enemies, like there's like, you're flying through levels and sometimes there's like walls you have to fly around, but like you'll see the enemy partially in front of the wall and partially behind, and there's like terrible flicker, and it's all like, there's just something kind of buggy about the emulation. But it's all right. I mean, overall, it kind of has the same mechanics. And the best part is you don't have to keep feeding it quarters because you die constantly because you don't always see where you're getting shot from. Like, there are a few levels where it's just like, I'm flying and then I just exploded. And I'm like, I don't know what happened. But the more I played it, the more I realized I don't really like Blaster that much. It's a neat kind of novelty game, and it's visually really trippy. I mean, I guess maybe under certain circumstances you would enjoy Blaster more.
Or way less.
Yeah, or way less. It's hard to say. But yeah, playing it, I said, you know what? I have kind of rose-colored glasses for this game, I guess, because when I first saw it, it looked so incredible. And going back and playing it some more, no, it's not a thing I can really get into, and I now understand why this was not a big hit and didn't get a bunch of home ports or any, like, it would have been hard to port to the systems at the time. I get that. But I get why now I never really saw this in arcades much back in the day, because it is a very tough game to get into. And I don't really see myself playing it again, except maybe if, Galloping Ghost kind of situation where it's on free play.
Yeah, agreed. I played the arcade version in MAME. It felt like a tech demo.
Yeah.
In a good way, but I was done with it after, half an hour, and very pretty game. It felt like it was Atari's version of Mode 7.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that it had a specific chip to, size things like that. again, really impressive tech demo. But and cool sound, kind of a cool effect when you die or whatever, your windshield cracks in front of you. Yeah, not a very deep game.
Yeah. So the development history is it started as a 5200 game, and then it was converted to arcade. And they never went back and did the home versions because of the video game crash in '83. And there's apparently a sit-down variant that is extremely rare.
Now that might be cool to play for 5 minutes.
Yeah, so I have a hard time recommending. I think it's a game you definitely should try, but I would not recommend you go out and make a big purchase to get a copy of it.
I would never want to play this in VR.
No.
Ever.
Oh,
Ever.
No, that sounds like a war crime.
But we have some listener feedback.
Yeah.
Duncan writes us. He's enjoying the new show. Thank you very much. And he just got caught up, and he just purchased a Mister. And Mister was the FPGA new hip way to emulate retro games we spoke about last episode. So please check that out if you haven't, so you know what we're talking about here. But the real reason he bought it was for the no lag controllers, pretty much, which is really cool. And it's why I would like one too, because if you've been listening to this too a while, I've complained about Bluetooth lag every once in a while. And that, he thought at first it was, his Raspberry Pi on this Dell monitor that was a bit laggy, but it was really just his Raspberry Pi that was adding that controller lag. And I feel you. That just happens. And it sounds like he wrote into your old podcast a little bit.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So, thank you very much for that email, Duncan.
Yeah, I'm trying to convert everybody over. Let's see. Majors writes in about the 1UP, the device we talked about on our last episode. And he said, he's dealt with a lot of free play on PCBs. And the easiest solution that he's done before was to wire the service or coin to the P1 start button. And then the drawback is then people mash the player 1 button. If you mash it too much, it can get stuck on press start, sometimes causing the attract mode to stop playing.
I do that same thing. I feel you.
Yeah. And those Konami games like Turtles and Simpsons are bad for free play also. I'm surprised Simpsons doesn't have a free play mode?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
That's a real shocker. Really surprised. Because, that just because of the age it came out in. It came out at a time when Aladdin's Castle birthday parties were pretty common, right? Where you would rent Aladdin's Castle after the mall closed for an hour, and they'd put every game on free play. They didn't want to give you tokens because they're afraid you smuggle them out and
just
get
take them.
Future free games.
I used to have that cabin before we would have like a family party or whatever. I would just, coin it up into oblivion right before people got there.
He also finds it odd, as he mentioned before, to see Sega games on PC Engine, but most, if not all, were programmed by NEC Avenue, which is true. NEC Avenue did a lot of games back then. The Golden Axe that I was talking about is like Renovation or someone. He said most of them are okay, but he kind of feels like Sega did not want them to be too good, which I agree to. He recommends, in terms of other techie podcasts, he likes Retro Roundtable. So he said a lot of it goes over their head, but that the hosts are funny. I don't think I've listened to that.
I listened to that one. Yeah, they're pretty good.
I'm confusing it with Retro Gaming Roundup, which is sometimes they get into technical topics. Sometimes they don't. He agrees with our assessment on Neo Geo people, but he says there are some normal ones out there. I don't retract any of my statements about Neo Geo people. There's sort of a weird...
Only in the forums. Only in the forums are they a bit gruff with us TurboGrafx guys.
Yeah. Contra 1cc. When he was in grammar school, he had a friend that had a good collection of NES games. His mom would buy him a new game every week. So he was popular with the gaming nerds. That's a pretty impressive allowance.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. I'm guessing his parents weren't together and it was some kind of overcompensation thing. All right. He recalls being over at his place to play games, and they played Contra. Since he played quite a bit more than I did, I would take his lives, and even with the 30-man sheet, he would run out of lives. So he said his friend could beat it on 1 credit. Just nuts. As for our games this episode, Avengers. He was a big fan of it, but prefers TMNT or Crime Fighters. And
Yes.
sort of comments that the sprites on it are very small, which, having not played the arcade version or having played it very distantly, I wasn't thinking of. But in the Super Nintendo version, they're pretty small too.
It's same size as the arcade version. So, pretty accurate.
Yes, and he also thinks Blaster is extremely trippy, and feeling the game hardware directed the game. Yeah, he said probably the game hardware dictated a lot of how it played. Midway had a new PCB design that supported pseudo-scaling, and they built a game around it. The
There you
colors
go.
are Midway for sure. He thanks us for the recommendation. So, yeah, I mean, I sort of recommend it. I mean, if you play Blaster and get some kind of seizure, I apologize.
But if that happens, email us at...
Email at retrogameclub.net.
And so, a bit of housekeeping again. Last week, I think it was last week, I can't remember when we recorded, we thanked 8-Bit Zach for maintaining our Facebook presence. And he immediately emailed us and said, no, I'm just Zach.
Regular
I don't know
Zach.
who the 8-Bit guy is, yeah.
So apologies to both regular Zach and 8-Bit Zach. If I was saying before, if it was a name like Steve or something, I would have done a double take and been like, oh, okay, well, there's probably more than one Steve. But I honestly have not met a lot of Zachs in at least not my age. Around my kids' age, there's an awful lot of them. But on mine there isn't, so I just didn't put 2 and 2 together that there would actually be 2 people of the same generation.
Yes.
Named,
I'm sure they're both great people.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm positive they both are. But thank you to Real Zach for all the help with the Facebook page, because it means I don't have to log in.
Some of the posts are mine, but most are Zach's. And thank you for everyone for keeping it. It's been very tame there. Thank you. We should pick some new Game Club games for everyone to play with us.
Yeah.
I went ahead and chose Space Quest 4 because I was thinking about DOS games, and I still remember the day I got that game in a big box with 3.5-inch discs. So go back and revisit that one.
So can you play that on archive.org? Because I don't think I own a copy of it.
Yes, and it is also on, there's a Sierra collection on Steam that's pretty cheap. I'm not saying go out and buy it, but yeah, you can play this one on archive.
Okay. And I'm going to go with Eternal Champions, any version, including the CD version.
Yes, which is, I think, the one I will probably gravitate towards.
Yeah, it was sort of the Sega CD's answer to Mortal Kombat, I guess, or the Sega Genesis version. So it came out a few years after Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat, and I would definitely recommend it. So we'll talk about it next time.
And that's it. We kept it under 2 hours this time.
Yeah. So again, email at retrogameclub.net and leave us a rating and review on iTunes. That's it.
Yes.
That is all I've got. So thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.